At my sister's baby shower, I handed her a box. Prepaid doula, diaper service, and $3,000 toward maternity leave. She looked inside, then said loudly, "Trying to buy your way into relevance." The room laughed. I took the box back, smiled, and said, "Guess I overspent." 10 minutes later, her phone lit up. Service canceled, account closed. Then came the rent app notification, also reversed. I used to think kindness was something that always paid off eventually, that if you gave people enough of yourself, they'd see it, they'd value it. That was before my sister's baby shower. Before I stood in the middle of a sun-drenched living room, holding a box I spent weeks planning and saving for, and watched her turn it into a joke in front of everyone. I'd put real effort into that box. Not just money, but time and thought. A prepaid midwife service with glowing reviews because I knew how anxious she was about the hospital system. A year-long diaper subscription because that stuff adds up fast, and I figured she'd want to focus on the baby, not errands. And $3,000 straight from my savings so she wouldn't have to worry about work right away. I even lined the box with a soft muslin wrap, folded perfectly like some Pinterest photo. It was everything I wish someone had done for me when I was going through a rough time. When I handed it to her, the room got quiet. Everyone was watching. Our cousins, her friends, even our parents, who were pretending not to take sides. She opened the box, looked at each item slowly, and then said it. "Are you trying to buy your way into my life?" Just like that, loud enough that the whole room heard. Then she laughed. And the others did too. Even my mom chuckled into her glass. I didn't say anything right away. I just looked around trying to find someone who looked uncomfortable, but no one did. So I reached forward, took the box back, smiled, and said, "I guess I overpaid." 10 minutes later, while she was chatting with someone about paint colors for the nursery, her phone buzzed once, twice, then a few more times. I saw her pick it up. Her face changed. She looked confused at first, then irritated. I'd already walked outside by then, got into my car, and pulled up the app, canceled the midwife booking, closed the diaper account, transferred the money back. Then I opened the other app and killed the rent payments too. She was living in the apartment I helped her get. My name was on the lease. I'd been covering half the rent because she said her boyfriend was still between jobs. They both were, technically. By the time I got home, she had texted me 3 times, then called twice. I didn't answer. I knew what was coming. That night my mother called. Didn't even ask how I was. Just launched into how I embarrassed my sister and how important family events aren't the time to act petty. I let her finish, then told her something I'd never said out loud before, that I was done with all of it. She didn't respond right away. Just hung up. I stayed up that night, scrolling through photos on my phone. Birthdays, holidays, moving days. I saw how many times I was there in the background, helping, smiling, driving a truck, paying for pizza, watching other people open gifts I paid for. Always the helper, the one who showed up, but not anymore. This was the start. I didn't fully know it then. But that night planted the seed that something in me had changed permanently. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just done. And being done, it turns out, was only the beginning. The thing about burning bridges is that people only notice when they realize they can't cross back over. 3 days after the baby shower, my dad showed up at my door. No text, no warning, just the heavy thump of his fist on the wood and the weight of someone who thinks silence is a form of aggression. I opened the door, and he walked in like I still owed him rent. He didn't look around, didn't comment on the place, just stood in the middle of my living room, arms folded, and asked what the hell I thought I was doing. Not "how are you" or "let's talk." Just straight to it, like I was a problem to solve. I let him talk. He went on about family and loyalty, how I humiliated my sister at her shower, how she cried for hours after I left, that I was cruel, that pregnant women are hormonal and I should have had the sense to know that the baby wasn't to blame, that my actions were disproportionate. I just stared at him. It was surreal. This was the same man who used to leave me waiting outside my school when I was 10 because he forgot which day he was supposed to pick me up. The same man who hadn't come to the hospital when I got into a car accident in college because he had a work thing. So I asked him calmly, "When's the last time you did something for me without being asked?" He didn't answer. He stood there, like I'd spoke in a different language. Then he told me not to be dramatic and said something about how people are starting to talk, as if public opinion was the issue. I walked to the door and opened it. He didn't leave right away, but eventually he got the message. That night, I blocked him too. The fallout came fast. First, it was a cousin reaching out, trying to act casual but clearly fishing for details. Then an old family friend sent me a long message about how forgiveness is powerful and I shouldn't throw away relationships over misunderstandings. It was obvious my sister had already started spinning her version of events. In her version, I was cold and unpredictable, a bitter brother who lashed out because the world didn't revolve around him. She made herself the victim, a pregnant woman bullied by her own flesh and blood. The irony? No one had asked me a single question. Not one person wanted to hear what led to that moment. They just took her word and ran with it. So, I made a decision. I stopped answering anyone. If they wanted to believe I was the villain, fine. Let them. I leaned into it. No more emergency loans. No more driving across town to fix something someone else broke. No more being the fallback guy. I didn't just stop helping them. I stopped being available to anyone at work. People noticed. I stopped staying late. Stopped covering for coworkers who showed up hungover. Stopped organizing birthday lunches. One guy joked that I was having a midlife crisis. Another said I seemed colder. They weren't wrong. I started small. Ignored a text from a friend asking for help moving, then declined a birthday invite I'd usually go to out of obligation. I canceled the trip I was planning with someone who always forgot their wallet. I unfollowed people, deleted numbers. Every time I did it, it got easier, cleaner. And then, out of nowhere, the baby came early. I didn't hear about it from my sister, or my mom, or my dad. I found out because my aunt posted a picture on Facebook and tagged my sister. A grainy shot of a hospital room. A newborn swaddled in pale blue. The caption read something like, "Welcome to the world, little miracle." I didn't feel anything. No tug in the chest, no pang of guilt, just a quiet certainty. They didn't want me there, so I stayed away. 2 days later, my mom called. I didn't answer. Then came a voicemail, then another. By the 5th, I finally listened. Her voice was tight, trying to sound composed, but I could hear the edge. She said we needed to talk, that there were things we needed to clear up, that it was time to put this behind us. I didn't call her back. Then came the message from my sister's boyfriend. It was short, aggressive. He said if I didn't step up and do the right thing, they'd make sure I couldn't show my face at another family event without people knowing what kind of person I really was, that I was selfish, vengeful, a coward. I saved the message, didn't respond, but I knew what was coming next. They weren't done. Not by a long shot. A week after the baby was born, I got a letter in the mail. A real letter. No return address, just my name, handwritten, almost shaky, like someone did it in a rush or with too much emotion behind it. Inside was a printed photo of the baby. No note, no explanation, just the photo. I stared at it for a minute, then slid it into the trash unopened. That might sound cold, but by then I had already accepted what this was. Not a family dispute, not a misunderstanding. This was war, and it had rules I'd never played by before. A day later, someone tried to log into one of my accounts. I got a password reset email from my bank, then my Netflix, then my Amazon. My guess? My sister or her boyfriend or maybe even one of the cousins, someone who had access to my Wi-Fi once or borrowed my phone at some point. I spent the night locking everything down. New passwords. 2-factor authentication. I even called the bank to put a flag on my account. It wasn't paranoia. They were already playing dirty. A few days after that, my landlord texted me. He said he got a call from someone claiming to be me, asking about the terms of my lease. When he wouldn't give any info, they tried asking about subletting. They even asked if someone else could move in using my name. I told him to ignore it, thanked him for letting me know, and added another lock to my front door that night. Then came the real punch, my job. I was called into HR on a Tuesday. They'd gotten an anonymous email claiming I had anger issues, that I'd made threats against my family, and that someone feared I might act out at work. It was full of vague accusations, nothing specific, nothing actionable, but just enough to make the company cover its bases. I wasn't suspended or fired, just spoken to, but the damage was done. People at the office started treating me different, like I might snap at any moment, like I wasn't the guy who used to organize the charity raffles and bake sales. I was now the guy with issues. I knew where it came from. I knew it was deliberate. My sister wasn't just hurt, she wanted to destroy me. So I decided something. I wasn't going to play defense anymore. I was done being cornered. That weekend, I drove to the apartment where my sister and her boyfriend were staying. I didn't knock. I didn't even get out of the car. I parked across the street and sat there for 10 minutes, just watching. When I got home, I pulled out the lease documents, the ones I'd signed, the ones where my name was still on the property. I made a few calls, started the paperwork to remove myself from the lease. I wasn't just cutting them off financially. I was erasing the part of my life where they even existed. Then I pulled out an old hard drive, loaded with photos, documents, backup files, years of birthdays, texts, screenshots. I started organizing everything. Not because I needed proof of anything, but because I finally understood something. I was the only one who had kept records. They relied on the assumption that I'd always be the quiet, generous one. Not anymore. The night I filed the formal termination for my financial ties to them, I slept better than I had in months. And when I woke up the next morning, there were no texts, no calls, no emails, just silence. But it wasn't peace, because they weren't done. And the next time they came for me, they wouldn't come quietly. It wasn't subtle. I came out of work and saw the back window of my car was smashed in. Glass everywhere. Nothing taken. Not even my gym bag or the loose change in the console. Just destruction for the sake of it. At first, I thought maybe it was random until I saw the paper tucked under the windshield wiper. Printed, not handwritten. No signature. No smudges. You can pretend we don't exist, but we're still your family. That baby is still your blood. Grow up. I stood there staring at it, while the rest of the parking lot buzzed around me like nothing had happened. That's when it finally hit me. They weren't trying to fix anything. They were trying to scare me. So, I didn't react, didn't post online, didn't text anyone. I filed the police report like I was supposed to, got a copy for myself just in case. The officer who took it asked if I had any enemies. I said no. He looked at me like I was lying. The next morning, I ordered a dash cam. High-end, motion-activated, full coverage, backup battery. I installed it myself. Then I asked my landlord about upgrading the locks on my door and got a Ring camera for the hallway. That weekend, my building's mailroom got hit. Packages torn open, letters scattered. Nothing missing, just chaos. My neighbor's stuff was untouched. Mine was the only mail dumped on the floor. Half of it stepped on. A card from a client, an energy bill, and an envelope with no return address that just said, "Family doesn't give up. Why do you?" I saved it, logged everything in a folder on my computer. Photos, messages, dates, times, not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted to be ready for whatever came next. Then my mom called. She left a voicemail. Her voice didn't sound angry or even disappointed. It just sounded tired. She said she didn't know who I'd become, that I'd always been the good one, the stable one, that she couldn't understand why I was suddenly so cold. She said my sister was having a hard time, and that I needed to grow up and stop acting like I was the only one who'd ever been hurt. She called what happened at the shower a bad moment. A bad moment, like it was some awkward comment at a dinner party, and not a public humiliation, followed by coordinated harassment. I played the voicemail twice, then I saved that too. A couple days later, someone tried to log into one of my old accounts. My old Netflix, then my Amazon, then a utility account I hadn't touched in months. I got alerts for password resets, one after the other. Someone was trying to get into anything with my name on it. I locked everything down again, changed every password, set up new recovery emails, froze my credit, called my bank just in case. That night I stayed up until 3:00 a.m., sorting through all the old family group texts. I screenshotted every message where I'd offered help, lent money, driven someone somewhere, fixed something, given something. It was like watching myself from a distance, the guy who always said yes. I didn't recognize him anymore. The final hit came a few days later. I was called into HR at work. They said they received an anonymous email. A long one. It claimed I was unstable, that I had anger issues, that I'd threatened my family, that someone feared I might bring those issues into the workplace. It was written just vague enough to sound serious. HR said they didn't believe it, but they had to talk to me, had to document it just in case. They told me not to worry, but of course I did. Reputation is currency, and mine had just taken a hit. After that, people at work looked at me differently. Not in an obvious way, but I felt it. Less eye contact, shorter conversations, fewer invites to lunch. One guy even asked me if everything was okay at home, and I couldn't tell if he was being kind or fishing for gossip. That night, I sat in the dark with my laptop and opened a new folder. I named it Evidence. Inside it, I saved everything. Every screenshot, every voicemail, every printed photo. I wasn't saving it for court, not yet. I was saving it because for the first time in my life, I finally realized something. They didn't just want me to come back. They wanted me to kneel. So I did the one thing I knew they'd never expect. I called the lawyer. I laid everything out. The harassment, the vandalism, the messages, the work situation. I didn't say I wanted to sue. I said I wanted options. She told me I wasn't overreacting, that I'd done the right thing documenting everything, that if this escalated, I had a case, and then she said something that stuck with me. Sometimes you have to burn the village to rebuild it. So I made a list. And the first name on it wasn't my sister's. It was my mother's. By the time I walked into the lawyer's office again, I wasn't asking questions anymore. I came with answers. I had spent the last few days going through everything. Messages from old phones, deleted chats I pulled from backups, even my mom's emails from when I used to help her with her taxes. The story they were building about me, angry, unstable, dangerous, it was all narrative and I was going to destroy it. I told the lawyer I wanted to take legal steps to protect myself. I didn't just want restraining orders. I wanted a formal disassociation. I asked about ways to sever ties financially and legally. I'd already taken my name off the lease, but I wanted to make it official in every way. No more emergency contacts, no shared accounts, no insurance ties, nothing. She nodded and said, "We begin." But what I didn't expect was what happened that night. I got home, and there was a car parked in my spot. At first I thought it was some neighbor or delivery guy. I walked over and knocked on the window. The man inside turned his head and smiled like he knew me. It was my uncle. I hadn't seen him in years. We were never close. He lived 2 states away and always acted like he was too busy for family functions, which in hindsight probably made him the smartest one. He stepped out of the car and handed me a flash drive. No explanation, just said, "You'll want to see what's on this." Then he got back in and drove off. I stood in my apartment for 10 minutes, just holding the thing, wondering what the hell was happening. When I plugged it in, I found dozens of files, videos, audio clips, screenshots, emails. Turns out my uncle had been watching all of this unfold from a distance. He didn't like what he saw. And apparently, he had access to an old group chat my mom and sister used to complain about me. He had kept records. He didn't trust them either. There were voice messages of my mom laughing about how soft I'd become, about how easy it was to make me do things. My sister mocking how I always showed up like a desperate puppy. My dad saying I'd never have a real family because I was too wrapped up in everyone else's. There was even a recording of them discussing what to say in the email to my job, which, as it turned out, was written by my sister's boyfriend and sent from a burner email they thought couldn't be traced. I sat there listening to it all, and for the first time in weeks, I wasn't angry. I was calm, because now I had leverage. I called the lawyer the next day and told her I had proof of coordinated harassment. She told me this changed everything, that we could press charges, that we could make formal demands, that I could go public if I wanted. But I didn't want a headline. I wanted control. So I made a decision, a cold one. I wrote a letter to each of them, my parents, my sister, her boyfriend. I didn't threaten. I didn't plead. I stated the facts. I told them what I had. I told them what would happen if they continued. I attached one audio clip to each envelope, just a taste. Then I ended the letter with a sentence I knew they'd understand. I am not part of this family anymore. I mailed the letters and left town for a week. Turned my phone off. No email, no social media. When I got back, there were no messages, no letters, no mysterious packages. But there was one voicemail. It was my mother. Her voice was shaking. She said she didn't know he had recorded them, that it was all just venting, that she never meant for things to go so far, that they were scared now, that they wanted to talk. I didn't call her back. I sat at my kitchen table, played the message again, and realized something. They didn't want me to forgive them. They just wanted me quiet. And this time, they weren't going to get what they wanted. I expected more chaos, more attacks, more attempts to claw their way back into my life through guilt or manipulation. But after I sent those letters and dropped off the grid, everything just stopped. No one showed up. No one called. No cousin reached out just to check in. It was like the whole system went dark for 2 weeks. There was silence. Then I got the invitation. It came in a plain envelope, my parents' return address. Inside was a folded piece of paper with nothing but a line. Family meeting. Sunday. No drama. Just talk. It almost made me laugh. After everything, they wanted a family meeting. No drama. Like it was a boardroom presentation. And not the fallout of years of being taken for granted, manipulated, and finally retaliated against for daring to draw a line. I didn't plan to go. But the night before, I sat in my apartment and thought about that baby, my nephew, a kid who didn't choose any of this, who was being raised by people I couldn't trust, in a family that used kindness as leverage. And I realized something. Maybe it wasn't about showing them anything anymore. Maybe it was about showing me that I meant what I said. So I showed up. Sunday, 4 p.m., my parents' house. I parked on the street, walked up the driveway, and rang the bell. My dad opened the door, stepped aside without saying a word. Inside, everyone was already there. My mom, my sister, her boyfriend, even my uncle, which surprised me, though maybe it shouldn't have. He didn't say much, just nodded when I walked in. The tension in the room was thick, but no one raised their voice. No one played the victim. This time, they knew better. My mom tried first. Said they had made mistakes, that things had spiraled, that no one expected it to go that far, that families hurt each other sometimes, but always find their way back. My dad didn't say much, just nodded along. My sister barely looked at me. Her boyfriend stared at the floor. Then they asked what I wanted. I told them I wasn't here to forgive them. I wasn't here to hug it out. I wasn't here to help with the baby or the rent or anything else. I told them I didn't owe them anything anymore, and that any relationship with me from now on would be on my terms. Terms they'd follow, or they'd never hear from me again. I laid it out like a contract. No more requests for money, ever. No surprise visits, no guilt trips, No whisper campaigns behind my back. And above all, respect. Not just when things were going well, always. My sister tried to speak. I cut her off. You burned me. And then you tried to bury me. I'm still standing, so from now on, you treat me like someone who matters. Or you stay out of my way. They didn't argue. They didn't protest. They knew I had everything, the recordings, the screenshots, the truth. When I stood to leave, no one followed. No one begged me to stay. I got in my car and drove home with the windows down. Not because it was a symbolic gesture or anything. I just wanted to feel the air. That was 6 months ago. Since then, things have been quiet. No one's asked for anything. No one's pushed back. They invite me to family things, but never expect a yes. They don't speak for me anymore. They don't twist the story. If they talk about me behind my back now, they do it with caution, because they know what happens if they don't. Now they respect me. They fear me, maybe a little, but most importantly, for the first time in my life, I respect me, and I'm not going back.